But when God says, I want to show you the works of my hands, that shows He's going to show you His power. Amen? And how does He show you and I His power? I'll tell you. This is all going to be part of what we're sharing this morning. He has shown His people the power of His works in giving them the inheritance of nations. Isn't that wonderful? The works of His hands are faithful and just. All His precepts are trustworthy. They are established forever and ever to be performed with faithfulness and uprightness. He sent redemption to His people, and He has commanded His covenant forever. Holy and awesome is His name, Selah. Isn't that beautiful? Psalm 111, verse 6 to 9. But isn't that, I just want to encourage you that God thinks, when we get saved, we often hear this thing, oh, well, if it was just for the one, Jesus never died for the one. He died for the world. He had more than just one redemption in mind. He had the redemption of nations, And as I've been traveling around the world in the last few years, what's amazing is it doesn't matter where you go, there's been someone that has shared the good news. In the most remote place, the guy said, there was a Kenyan here last week preaching. It's weird, isn't it? I'm talking in the middle of Belarus. The flip side of that, when I was preaching in Rwanda, after I'd shared the good news and I had an altar call, some of the leaders came and said, it's wonderful to have a born-again Christian preaching, because we have so many preachers coming through here. They're not preaching the gospel. Now, they don't mean, put your hand up and receive Jesus. What they're saying is he's preaching the truth and not some ministry. Amen. Anyway, besides that, God is a God that has nations on His heart. And if you read our vision statement, we are committed to equipping God's people for personal growth and maturity in faith in order to see each person released into their God-given destiny. There's so many people where you go, and the one thing the devil can do is he can rip away any faith and hope for destiny to work out. And people will always see some big issue. And then it goes on, we believe that God wants us to positively influence leaders and to continue where about? For churches, communities, and market. It doesn't say in the UK. We just said wherever there's a door open for us to go and minister. And so in the last while, I've been so motivated to bring in the kingdom teachings, because as soon as I start to preach the intimacy of Father, and God's a Father and we are His children, and trying to get rid of hierarchy leadership. And the other thing is to establish the kingdom. Seek first the kingdom, not converts. And when the kingdom is established, communities are healed. And in that, you heard that there, I will come, give you the nations and my redemption in the community. Isn't that wonderful? And so people only really get to see established kingdom work to know the king. Otherwise, they think you're crazy. So just with that in mind. And so we've been very fortunate. We've got our basic teachings that we teach in our church all the time to our leaders and to you. And one of the books has been that we've developed has been established. We've got someone writing it out in one of the Rwandan languages at the moment. We've got these all done in Russian as well, and also another booklet also in Russian. So aren't we fortunate? So the best thing is, I don't have to carry, only when I go to certain countries, I don't have to carry these with me. They're all on iBooks. We just give it to a person and let them read that, because the opportunities for us, both where we are in the community here and wherever God puts us, there's such a hunger for the kingdom. And the kingdom has always been such a passive thing in the past. We've always heard teachings about the kingdom being when all the churches walk together. No, actually, no. We shouldn't walk together. We should be loving each other. I can walk with my dog, but we need to love one another deeply so that we can find out our passions and then work together in that. And so, about 2 years ago, I remember one morning I was preaching about walking in unity and how forgiveness needs to ensue, and often you're holding an offense against the person and they don't even know why. And I preached on the Sunday, and then on the Wednesday or Tuesday, we had the city conference. And guess what? I sat with two men around the table that really caused division. And I sat with them, and it ended up that one of them I now work with. Isn't that wonderful? Because sometimes you've got to put those things aside. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. And now we're going to just get on. We also keep saying we are deliberate about raising sons in the house. Amen? A son can be 100 years old. We're not talking about age. We're talking about position. I'm going to read you. I love quotes on leadership to strengthen me. Here's one I'd love to share with you, especially the leaders here. Insecure leaders, talking about cell leaders as well, hold people accountable to show power and authority. Secure leaders hold people accountable because they are fighting for them to become the best and won't let them settle for the status quo. Amen? So I want to encourage you today. You might hear some stuff. You think, oh, that's not for me. And you can discount everything. But actually, God, we're not in an army where you just sit and watch. We're in a battle. And all of us can bring something. Whether it's prayer, that's always a fob off. I've heard many missionaries, well, just pray for me. What they really mean is they really need help. But I want to say we're a team. And if we want to really effectively connect with our communities, it's going to take voluntary and time and energy. And I'm going to just use Nosmayo. They lost their shop, didn't they, or their post office. Is that right? Newton Ferris. And it was on the news. And I was all inspired by it because what these people did is the community got together. The communities got together and they manned the post office and a little shop or whatever. And now they've got a little coffee shop next to it. And I know you volunteer for them. But it takes energy in the community for the community to be affected. We can't open a community centre and then no one go there. True, isn't it? And so in whatever, open the book only works because we have people doing open the book. And 90% of the people doing open the book don't feel called to do it. They're called feel to touch the next 2 or 3 generations from now. Isn't it amazing? What's that lady you just ran in front of you? I forget her name now, sorry. Naomi. Did you know that Naomi and Ryan were in our children's church here? How's that? Did you know that? Okay. Did you know that some of the mums that I meet now were the babies when we started Mums and Tots? It's scary, isn't it? And some of the mums that came then now are grandmums with their grandchildren here. But you just start something small and then God just can do something with that availability. Well, I don't have much to give. Well, that's where seeds grow, in amongst the manure. You understand? That's it. God uses us. So I don't want to speak anymore. We've got a few things we'd like to share with you. There we go. Thanks, Ben.
Okay, hello. You'll see a few of us up here this morning, so I'm not going to take the whole time. But I just wanted to start with some words of prophecy. So we, as you know, we're linked in with Church of the Nations through relationship. And once a year, we kind of get together as leaders. And we have a time just kind of fellowshipping with the other church leaders within the cluster. And Tony, who kind of leads and heads up that cluster, will often bring words of prophecy, which are for the cluster. And kind of winding back just over a year ago, it was the end of 2017, and they had a prophecy for the cluster, and the prophecy was all around the word of acceleration. And they really felt that last year was going to be a year of acceleration for generally the churches within our cluster, within our relationships. And we all kind of came away feeling quite excited by that. God had been speaking to us as an eldership about particular plans and visions. And we kind of said, yeah, this is going to be this year where we kind of felt that all kind of lines up. It's going to be quite an accelerated year. And then we kind of look back at what happened in our year, last year. Some good things happened. But actually there was some different things going on where it felt like generally lots of us were kind of feeling a little bit held back rather than accelerated. And it was an interesting kind of like, well, that's weird. Was that maybe misheard, or we walking in something that isn't maybe the way God wanted it? It just felt a little bit disjointed. But anyway, so we came back to our cluster time for this year, which was just 2 weeks ago. And they were recapping on that word of acceleration, and they said that it was amazing how many of the churches within our cluster, within our group, had also felt kind of held back when there was this expectation for acceleration. But lots of different things had been happening in the different churches with relationships and health and all sorts of different things where people kind of felt held back, and it was like what was all that about? For this year, and I'll come back to that in a moment, but for this year, the word really was about having an abundance of God and a tipping point. So when we kind of see things kind of in balance sometimes, and once you kind of got this tipping point where things kind of are changing from one side to the other, and then once it tips, it then really starts flowing. I really felt that was the kind of the word for the churches in the cluster for this next season that we're in. And then there was kind of I guess like an interpretation or an add-on from the previous year's prophecy, this kind of vision of acceleration. Someone gave an analogy of those little toy cars where you kind of, to make them go, you have to pull them back. You know those ones? They really felt that actually that year of acceleration was like us in a toy car being kind of pulled backwards. Everyone kind of feeling like the opposite is happening and you're going backwards. But when it's released, it then really it accelerates and it goes forward. Okay, and yeah, that kind of that propels you then into that destiny of that year. And then when we started just kind of reasoning, looking at our previous experiences, what had happened over this last year, we were like, if certain things had been birthed in that year, we could have seen them really sidetracked. But almost like God was just holding us back, preparing us, getting us into our ducks in a row, to be able to then really go forward with real success and victory. Oh, Neil, your thing went off, sorry. So what's this one? An arrow can only be shot by pulling it backward. When life is dragging you back with difficulties, it means it's going to launch you into something great. So just focus and keep aiming. Yeah, absolutely. So that really kind of... There were many things, obviously, in the last sort of year or so, but for us, it was interesting kind of seeing that actually the churches within our cluster were experiencing the very same things. So we know God is good. We know that his word is true. And even sometimes when our circumstances don't line up with that, we know he's still on the throne and he's got a plan and a destiny for us. So that year of abundance and tipping point sums up this year that we're going into. And we're going to give you some specifics for how we're going to see our vision rolled out. But in essence, the three things that it all kind of encapsulates is growth. So we often talk about how we don't measure the kingdom by numbers. It's the growth. It's our spiritual growth. It's our maturity. It's how close our heart mirrors the heart of the Father. It's that kind of growth which is important. But this year we really do believe actually numbers is a key part, because a key part of our vision this year is community outreach. And we're going to mention some of the vehicles and ideas that we've got of how we're going to impact the community. But that is going to be a real core part of what we're doing this year. So growth, community outreach, and community connections. So Neil's just going to come and share some of the specific changes we've heard about in Church of the Nations recently. But then we'll go through some of the practicals of how those are going to outwork in a moment.
Thank you. It's very important for us to not... I know that I'm not correcting Ben, but he said we're connected to them by relationship. That's very true. But we haven't signed a contract. We faithfully tithe. We faithfully submit ourselves under. And we're very fortunate because there's quite a few clusters around the world. I don't even know how many churches we have, and that's just the way that Church of the Nations works. But it's important for you to know that we align ourselves and we're accountable and transparent and open. And Tony can ask me anything at any point, and sometimes I offer him things. And I speak with him quite regularly, just to let you know that. But the rest of Church of the Nations don't actually work with Tony at all, even though he started it out. And he was just saying this, they're really going out of their way to create a flat top organization, that there isn't a hierarchy with a pope on the end, but that every church works as itself. But if you need any help or apostolic counsel or guidance, they're there for that. So you know those little blue booklets everyone got? If you read in there, it actually tells you what the apostolic team does. So our team was called Mercurius, but when I was a child, there was a thing called Mercurius Chrome, and you write it on your sores. And so they've changed it now. Some of you have met Keith Duplessis. He's a apostolic leader, and he heads up churches. Australasia is the heading, and he's got some churches that he's involved with in Europe as well. And our cluster and their cluster have joined, and Tony is going to do a lot less traveling. I mean, if you look at his itinerary, I don't know how he was with us on the weekend. He just got back from somewhere. Then he was with us on the weekend. Monday he was flying to America, and then Tuesday he was off to Australia, wasn't it? How do you survive that? But he's done his whole life. That's what he feels God's. But I mean, he has incredible influence from churches opening banks and running them on godly principles to just a brand new Christian. It's wonderful to see that. So our cluster and Keith Duplessis' cluster, we're combining, and we're now called Connected. That's the name of our cluster. So that's the name. We're just called Connected, and I think some of the stuff will work. And then each apostolic leader have got a couple that they are raising up to replace them. Does that make sense? So at the moment, it's Mike and Justine will be part of that for the UK, but Tony still heads it up and does everything like that. And it's great that we know everybody by name. We might not be friends. Is there someone trying to get in? I saw a red shirt. And so it's really good for that to happen. And I just want to say it's so nice that there isn't this cajoling and fighting for position. Does it make sense? And everyone, trying to have this ambition and things like that. Don't break your phone. And so it's just important for us to remember that we're part of something great and big, and we can speak to each other, we can ask each other questions, how did you do that? So there's a lot of that going on. But just to share that with you, just to let you know that I personally will never work on my own autonomously. Even when we were going through some transitions, I was always aligning myself to certain folks. So just want you to know that. We also, as a church, are working in Plympton and in the city, and we connected with many leaders and community leaders. So we'll let you know further on. Who's next on the list? Claire.
I hope that doesn't stick. Actually, it was quite funny. We went to South Africa a couple of years ago on mission, and Travis is laughing. I can't think where it was that we were, but they asked what my name was, and I said my name's Claire, and they said Kleb. I was like, no, it's Claire, Kleb, and they just couldn't get it, so I became known as Kleb during that South African trip. And then when I got back in the training centre, that kind of stuck, really. So, yeah, so I guess I'll answer to anything, but Claire's preferable. So we're really excited about this year. We're looking forward to a year of faith, of abundance, that year of seeing things really happen. And we got together as elders, I think it was probably about 2, maybe 3 years ago, and Neil asked us, I think it was 3 questions about looking at what each of us as individuals, the 6 elders, wanted to see happen in our community, in Living Well, and also in our lives personally. And all of us pretty much came up with the same things, which was fantastic. So that's always confirmation for us that the vision that we're imparting today, that we were seeing a couple of years ago that didn't come to pass over this last year, is something that's really shared between the 6 of us, and that we're really passionate about and excited about. So we're going to start going through what's going to be coming up for the next, not just this year, but for 2 years. So we feel we've got a vision for these next couple of years. What I'm going to do is, hopefully next week, or if not, into the following week, I'll send out a mailing with all the dates in that we're going to talk about today. So don't worry too much about getting everything written down. If you're not on our mailing list, do let me know, and then I can put your name onto the mailing list so you get our updates. But things will be announced as we go through over these next few days. So yeah, so don't stress too much about dates. We will get those out to you. So we've got a vision about a community project that we would like to undertake. And I personally feel, and I think the elders feel as well, that a vision isn't a vision if it's easily reachable. A vision is something that's often quite a little bit outside of our touch. that we can't get to and isn't overly comfortable, which isn't always a bad thing. It's always good to have something to aim for. So the big vision of where we'd like to go in these next few years, but we're not going to start at this point, we're going to break it down, do things a bit smaller, is we would love to have a purpose-built centre here in Plympton that has a large soft play area, almost like an extension of Mums and Tots, that has a coffee shop facility, that has rooms where we can meet with parents, maybe undertake parenting courses, undertake marriage support, any sort of support that people are looking for. And that's the bigger dream of what we'd like to do, but we obviously can't just step out in that straight away because we don't have a building, finances are still to come, and there's lots of other things that need to be put in place. But it's something that we really, really want to work towards. So we've decided to start really small. And as you know, we've had the play centre that's been put out the soft play area in the Oak Room here. And it's proving really popular with mums and tots and with the children on a Sunday morning. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to use that space and open up a community coffee shop just one morning a week to start with the view that we're going to look to grow that into a facility. So in Plympton, there isn't anywhere, really. There's lots of coffee shops on the Ridgeway and in different places, but there isn't a facility for mums to be able to come and the kids can play and break a leg, hopefully, or hopefully not, in the soft play centre, and just enjoy some fellowship together, let the kids run around, and just be able to sit and relax. So we feel that with the soft play facility that we can start offering that to the local community. So we're going to try one morning a week. We're going to make some changes in the Oak Room with tables, chairs, sofas, however that looks, coffee machine, and we're going to try to pull together a team that's going to start help facilitate that coffee shop running one morning a week. And if it proves popular, we'll look to extend it and hopefully have it as a staff project, but we're just going to start small for the time being. Ben's vision is to have a Santa's grotto as well at some point, but that might be further along the line. So what we'd like to do is on Wednesday, the 27th of February, in the evening at about 7:30, we'd like to come together as a body and have like an envisaging evening. So we want to get people together and we want to start looking at ideas, exploring possibilities. Coming along to that evening doesn't mean to say that you're automatically signed up to do loads of stuff. So we just feel that as an eldership, we could probably get this off the ground, but we're here as a family and we're here as a body, and we want to involve everybody in this project. So we're going to come together for some ideas generation, and off the back of that evening, we'd like to form a working group that are going to take this forward and start looking at getting this off the ground for the first one morning a week to start off with. And what a fantastic opportunity just to reach out to community. Mums and Tots and Tracy and the team do a fantastic job here with building relationships, and it's like an extension of that. So do please come and join us, put your ideas hat on, and we'll have a good time together on that 27th. So that's that one. Steve.
Thanks. Good morning, all. The first thing to tell you is that we're going to be cancelling cells in March in their present format. However, there will be something else to take its place for those 4 weeks. And that's that we're going to be putting on a marriage enrichment course. Now, please don't, if you immediately think, oh, that's not for me, please don't switch off, don't kind of ignore what it's all about. It might not be for you, but you might know some friends or family or neighbours who could really benefit from that. You could come along and support them in that. Or if that doesn't apply, you might be able to babysit and enable couples to come together on the course. So please don't dismiss it, kind of mull it over and think about it carefully. And it's marriage enrichment, it's not counselling, so we're not going to sit down and do one-to-one counselling. We're not qualified to do that. But it is a course that enriches your marriage, and no matter how good your marriage is, I'm sure we'd all agree, it would be great to learn something new, learn something more. Sarah and I have been through the course, and we've also led it, I think, about 3 times. And each time we do it, we learn something new each time. So as in life in general, we just never stop learning, do we? So why not come along and learn a bit more and enrich the marriage? It's going to contain 7 secrets to a godly, fulfilled marriage. And our marriages don't just affect the couple, they affect our family, our friends, community, people we work with, our own spiritual health, our own emotional health. So it's not just for us and not just for the couple, it just benefits on a wider circle as well. It is going to be open to the public. So the only qualification really is being over 18. So we're hoping that people from the community will be joining us. Again, think about family, think about friends who might want to know about it. There are going to be some of those cards designed so you can kind of hand them out. It's going to have all the information and dates. It's going to be held here from 7:15 to 9:30. You might have already done the matches course before, which is the marriage enrichment course. But if you've done it before, please don't discount it again. It's going to be reformatted. We're going to be doing it slightly different, so there will be new elements to it. So again, don't think, oh, I've been there, done that. You know, there's always something new to learn. I think that kind of covers all the details of it. But yeah, just encourage you to pray about it, think about it, and it'd be great to see you here. Thank you. Yep.
Anybody that perhaps are not married, it's very good for looking after your family and to be able to see things that you could perhaps just critique a little bit when you're talking to your family and you have problems. So if you understand this, it's a great asset to your families and your family lives.
It is, yeah. Yeah, just that is a great point. Thanks, Sandy. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Steve. So we talk about life in the kingdom. There are definitely principles, aren't there, that we kind of build our lives around. Marriage being such a key part of life in the kingdom. Exactly what Steve said, has such an impact, kind of, you know, in the fabric of society, doesn't it? And a second one we want to really highlight is finances. Money matters. The way that we conduct our finances on kingdom principles has a massive impact on our life. And a massive impact on the community around us. So again, it's a real core part that we want to be able to see all of us really walking in godly principles when it comes to finances. You know, God doesn't want us to be walking in debt. He wants to see us walk in freedom. God doesn't promise us all to be incredibly rich with money. Jesus didn't really have a lot. But it's different for different people. So we're not at all saying this kind of prosperity gospel, which is a put your life like this and you'll get rich. We're not saying that. But what we are saying is put your life like this and there will be blessing. We've mentioned Tony Fitzgerald, who's our apostolic leader, who's on the in our relationship cluster. And Tony is joining us. He's basically really got it on his heart to equip around kingdom finances. And we had a session with him, our eldership had a session with him last year, and we've, for years have kind of known a lot of the teaching around tithing, but he was really reminding us again about the principle of first fruits, which is around giving, but it's different to tithing. And I'm not going to give you all the details of it now, but Tony's really got it on his heart about these kind of principles, to really be sharing them within the guys within the cluster, within the guys that he's interacting with. And we invited him last year, at some point, could you come and really to share that with us as a body? And when we saw him the other day, he said, yeah, I can come in March this year. So it's a Saturday, the 16th of March, and he's going to join us for the majority of the day from 10:30 to 2:30, and he's going to walk us through the principles of kingdom finances, and this is for our own lives, as well as our businesses if we're involved in leading a business, as well as church, as well as nations. It works at all different levels, the kind of God's finances. And something that really excites me is every time I see Tony, he'll give us those little nuggets of, these principles have been put here, these principles have been put here. And he was sharing with us recently that Switzerland, as a nation, is going to be, it's on the cusp of that tipping point of being able to put these principles, these kingdom principles, actually into their nation, and it will be the first kind of current nation kind of working on those principles. And it's amazing, isn't it? And we see, throughout the word, isn't it, there's this kind of victorious kind of eschatology of us, taking ground for the kingdom, and the world being, just being transformed and seeing the nations transformed. And for me, that was such an encouragement, actually, of hearing actually a nation now is on the cusp of putting in God's principles around kingdom finances and having their nation run on it. So it happens at all levels. So I really encourage you to just join with us on that day. And again, not just for yourself, but for others as well. This is an opportunity where we're kind of, again, opening this equipping up to anyone who wants to come. It's obviously going to be a Christian teaching on kingdom finances, but we'll have guys here from the cluster in the southwest that are going to be joining us, and we're going to be putting it out to the churches in Plympton and in Plymouth as well. So it's going to be a wonderful kind of day just to come along, hear those are all kind of kingdom teachings on how we use our finances. And there's going to be a time of ministry, of prayer as well, for anyone who is struggling with debt, to symbolically shred your debt papers. He said, don't bring your originals, bring a copy of, and we're going to pray over them, because God doesn't want us to be in debt. He wants us to live in freedom. And if we can put these principles into our life, we're going to be living in a blessed state. So, that's it. Saturday the 16th of March, Money Matters with Tony. Are we taking a break? Yeah.
We're going to break for tea and coffee, but please bring your coffee in as well, so we can just extend the coffee time. And just on the back of that, just one thing that Tony's trying to teach with the teachings are also thinking about investing in your own future. You understand? Taking care of your pension and things like that. Anyone born after 1960 won't get a good pension. You're just going to you'll just be on income support. So just remember those little things. So please have some tea and coffee with us. Thank you. Come straight back in 10 minutes.